we were just discussing the importance of considering one's own position, one's own presence, one's own stance in relation to the world, in relation to one's own challenges, emotional, psychological, social, etc. But mostly mental health challenges and issues like that. If and when you become, let's say, for many people, skilled, trained, even licensed, accumulating all your hours, if it's like something like a really governmentally, you know, um, protected or whatever, initiated position. So you're in a responsible position. Or you are in the public eye. That public might be 3 people, 2 people, or 500 million people, or more. But basically an arena where you can do something for someone else who is struggling with your issues. Somebody who, a human being, or actually it doesn't even have to be a human being, it could be some, like animals, for example, taking care of the animals in some area, and while you are struggling with some issues. These are important things, in my opinion, to my understanding, to be doing for the world, to help the world. Species, let's say, if you are going after protecting of wild elephants, for example, or gorillas in Congo, or in elephants in Asia, trying to make sure that they're no longer going to be considered like buses for tourists and be tortured while doing, it's heart-wrenching when you see how they treat them in some places. So these are good causes. Like the conversation started earlier about therapists, because I happen to be a psychotherapist in the state of California. And how my experience, I can only speak about my experience, working, dealing with other fellow licensed clinicians, psychotherapists, social workers, etc., is that we are so much under stressed, like in situations. And many of us come to the table, come to work, come to be in a very important position, which we try to do. I'm hoping I'm speaking, for all, obviously, here. We try to do our best to help society, to alleviate the suffering and pain. The issue that I have with this is when we are being pulled into the nature of work or doing good so much that it pulls us away from our own pain, our own suffering. Now this is very, like, it tastes sweet momentarily, especially when the client or patient turns to you and says, "Wow, I'm a totally different person, doctor. Thank you so much. I appreciate it," and etc. Or you see the changes happen in them, and then all of a sudden that invisible hand that comes up, crawls up your shoulder, and just pats you on the back and says, "Yeah, I did it." As they leave the session room, or you come, if you're still an intern or a trainee, for example, or a clinician, you meet in your scheduled supervision, whether individual or group, whatever, you start talking about your cases, and it's like, and they reverberate sometimes, those sentiments, those emotions back to you. It's like, wow, he improved that much, or you did that, or she did this. Oh, they're all of this is such a boost, such a cover. Cover of what? For what? Cover for you not to see your own stuff, gunk, the stench of our own issues. And that's why a lot of people go and go to a so-called happy hour. Booze themselves up. Drink a lot of alcohol, or binge, which has become such a normal word in today's society. Oh, I'm binging on Netflix. I had colleagues who would just sit down and talk about, oh, what did you binge on this weekend? And usually it has to do with some series or shows on TV or on the internet, online. And sometimes, if I felt comfortable enough with certain individuals, so there's some rapport. I'm talking about colleagues again, like clinicians and whatnot. By the way, this doesn't only apply to clinicians. This is everywhere. I used to be a teacher. I used to be a high school teacher. I'm junior high and high school teacher, and I would see the same thing. Teachers going in, happy hour. There were times where I used to join in too. Yeah, let's go have a martini or something, or whatever. Yeah, this is so you get your mind out and off of all the work that you've done, and then you talk about the experiences, and you feel good that you're giving so much of yourself. Working 10, 12, 14-hour days. Grading papers, taking care of this, and doing all these things, and working overtime, not paid in many cases. But the problems were not being addressed. Our problems, my problems, the individual's problems. So as I was mentioning, the conversation began as we were addressing the importance of doing good. And I like to draw caveats. I like to always look at both sides, and what is the danger? Is there a danger in doing something? I mean, who can really argue when we're talking about doing good, right? Well, yeah, we can, if it is coming at a cost. So I like to call this the addiction of doing good. There's addiction of drugs, intoxicants. There were times where up until recently, marijuana and other things were illegal. Now they're not in most countries and most states, I believe. So people do it all openly. But doing good, I think, is still in fashion, and it will be for such a long time, because on the outside it looks so, really nice. It gives you a nice feeling, and then people who watch it, when you reach over and help someone, obviously, we look at the act, irrespective of the intentionality of the people involved. Where are these people coming from? So being in the trenches, if you will, of psychotherapy, in the field of that. And it's always, I mean, as I said, it doesn't have to be with psychotherapy. It could be nurses, it could be other health care providers, physicians. I met nurses, for example. You see their lifestyle away from the, scrubs, like in my case, away from the session room when you don't have your therapist hat on. If the person is miserable, and there's quite a number of us who are very miserable, who go to work wanting to relieve some of that misery, being lost in the work itself, and waiting for that moment to come during the day where we hit that nice little sweet spot. We do something good for someone, and then we feel good. That might be strong enough to last us the whole day, but we still stink. Stink with our negative emotional states, the negative thoughts, the negative habits, the cycles of suffering within us. Meanwhile, it's easier. This is like, sometimes people don't get it. They're like, how could you say that, this and that? Like, if doing good is always good. It's in fact, it's harder to do good to someone than to yourself. It's a joke. Of course it's easier doing something because they don't know where you're coming from. They don't know what's going on inside of your mind. We all have masks that we carry, several different kinds of masks, depending on certain conditions, situations. Recently I brought it up during a retreat where I was discussing, I wouldn't say the danger, but just the phenomenon of doing good. Am I expecting a certain outcome from this interaction? If I'm giving you some money, if I'm getting you a bag of groceries, if I'm giving you whatever, where is that coming from? What is the volition? What is the intention behind it? Am I covering anything up, basically, if you narrow it down? So doing good is never about covering up anything. Doing good is not about covering up. Unfortunately, in many cases, that's what we do. And cultures throughout human history have been doing this, usually with religious motifs and things like that. But again, I come back to the fact that doing good is wonderful. It's wonderful. It feels good for the receiver. It definitely feels great for the one who's giving it, whatever it is. I'm just using them. It could be an act, a gesture. However, I'm inviting the person here listening, you, to re-engage your intention behind doing good. Is it truly virtuous? What's my angle? That's another term people use. What's your angle? Why? I mean, on the outside I might look like a saint, the person, but on the inside there's a lot of calculations going on, even on a subconscious level. So people become uncomfortable when I ask them why. A series of whys, basically. Why did you want to do it? Well, because it makes me feel good. Okay. So the next level of that if it makes you feel good, which is everyone's right. Of course, everyone needs to be happy, in my opinion, to my understanding. We want to be, as a living, breathing organism. However, are we fooling ourselves on any level? The reason why I'm saying this is because I need to bring the point of focus back to the person. Is there the sense of contentedness within you, the sense of calm state of serenity within your mind, irrespective of what happens outside, whether you do it or not? Sometimes, I've had people say, well, I wanted to give some money to this person who was standing at the, at the light with a plaque saying homeless, or I need money. And then I looked at them and I reached into my dashboard or pocket or whatever, and I wanted to give him something, but then I thought, well, look at him. He's got a cell phone. He's using a cell phone. How is he paying that bill? And he looks like he's cleanly shaven. And he also looks like, quote unquote, druggy or something like that. So where's my money going to go? You know what? Nah, I'm not going to give him. And then you drive off. The light turns green and you drive off. Now, as you're driving away, part of you goes, ooh, maybe I should have given him. I don't care what he does with the money. It's about me doing something good to another person. So now, oh, by the way, especially if you've seen somebody else on the other side of the road doing that and actually handing the money, guess what? Now you have a reference point for you. Reference point for what? For you to feel remorse, to feel guilty. So now, there goes your day for some of us. Now, we look for doing good to appease, to kind of die out that fire, to kind of water it, extinguish it, trying to extinguish it. So doing good now becomes another form of a chore. Especially when we're living in a society right now that is glued to Facebook and other social media tools, and everybody's looking for that clip, that video that shows somebody doing good to someone. So now people are competing. Whose video is going to be more impactful? How many millions of views they're going to get? I'm curious about let's say, the two individuals involved in that scene. Some of them, by the way, some of these videos I've seen are very well choreographed. Different camera angles. So it makes you wonder about the authenticity of the act itself. Well rehearsed. But again, I can't tire from saying how important it is to do good, to be generous. My thing is about the intention behind it. Am I doing my work? Coming back to the therapists. Many therapists don't do their work, unfortunately. Some people might not like me saying this, but I mean, it's not about, again, just about psychotherapists. It's about pretty much all the helping professions. Helping, not just healthcare, like even teachers, I see them as helping profession. Because you're guiding a human being, you're allowing them the tools to live on this planet and understand the world. Hopefully, you're that kind of teacher. Why should it be like me going home and binging, or smoking some weed or something like that in order for me to feel good? And then enough energy will come back to me, and then I'll go back on Monday to work. Knowing the tools does not necessitate that we actually apply them ourselves, for ourselves, because we are no different than the clients, than the patients that we see. We're not. In fact, the client or the patient has themselves to deal with those symptoms, right? When they leave your office, your clinic, it's a one-man show, pretty much. One-person show. But if you have a good caseload of clients coming in through the door, that means back to back. So if we are not doing the work, what are we doing really? Are we just applying series of interventions and tools that we got in our toolbox? Putting on the therapist hat or the mask, I like to call it. Or am I genuinely there, engaged, fully engaged? Because there's no way that a person is going to be able to see back to back 7, 8, 9, 10, 13 in some cases, which is mind-boggling, day after day. How in the world are you, a human being, nevertheless, with a lot of skills, a lot of training in many cases, not having done your work? Even if you've done your work, it's too many. However, unfortunately, in many places, there's no other option. There's too many people needing help. So I understand that in some cases. However, do I take the moment to kind of just go back in to myself? Or am I on automatic pilot, like the case is often with many people in all helping professions, including teachers? Those are the two careers that I've been, that's why I go back to them. I was a teacher for over a decade and a half, and been a psychotherapist for some time as well. Not that much though, but still. After you've worked with thousands of students, thousands of patients and clients, it's very easy for us to become jaded. But we are not teachers, we are not just therapists, we are not nurses, we are not doctors, whatever. We are people, just like the other person sitting across from the desk, from the table, from the whatever. We are people like them, and we have our own struggles. Doing good can be addictive, is an addiction in some cases, if it is not being done from a good state of mind, a good, wholesome state of mind that doesn't come back with a vengeance, remorsefully trying to take you down. Whether you did give the money to that person or not, it makes no difference. Where were you coming from in your mind when you had the thought, well, maybe he's going to use it to get drugs or to do something nasty that I don't want to take part of? Were you coming from a good place in your thinking, even that? Was it a wholesome place? So did you want that person to go and buy some food? And he looked emaciated, he looked like undernourished. So maybe you could, I would like for him to, whether you're given it or not, at that moment, if your intention was to help him become a better person, better, like in a better state, and the light turns green and you hit the gas pedal and you go, and then you go, oh, instead of feeling that remorse, the next time you come across a person, a human being who is in that state, try to function from that space as you were earlier, but a little bit more speedy, in reaching into your pocket and pulling that money and handing it over to them without trying to miss the opportunity. Let it just go. Your intention is what matters. Or even if you don't find a person like that, you see a person reaching for the shopping cart at the grocery store or market, and you've reached there first, and then you see another person go, just give them the turn. That might actually be a lot more effective in some cases than just handing money in bringing out a harmonious, a good state, a wholesome state of mind in both people. So what we're trying to do is making it part of our character, part of our lifestyle, the doing good, I mean. But we got to always be careful. I want to forgive this person. I want to give this person this thing. I want to help out this person. I want to. It's always important for us to turn the camera back on us. Why? Do I want to be such a goody-goody person? Like, why? Why? I want to go out and help people. Okay, that's beautiful. Good. I want to go out and help people. Okay, beautiful. Because they're suffering. That's one answer to the why, which is a very valid response. However, how much of my time am I doing that for? When I come home, am I the same miserable person? Or am I trying to replay the tape from the day of me doing good in order for me to not feel miserable? That's a red flag. We stop there and we're like, okay, I need to do some work on myself. I need to do some self-forgiveness here. I need to first start doing good for myself, and that is healthy. It's not nasty selfishness. No, it is healthy. And this is at the bottom, at the foundation of using good actions in order for us to feel good. Addiction. The foundation is, I just don't want to work on myself, which is how this conversation came about, because many individuals, especially in the helping professions, like I'm talking specifically now about clinicians, psychotherapists, social workers, and clinicians like that, working with mental health. We need to do our own work. And no, not 10 years ago, yeah, I've done my thing, but I've gone to a few therapy sessions for myself, and that's it. That's a joke. Unless you maintain some type of regimen that you work on yourself. You do meditation, you do yoga, you sit down, you journal, you write down your hang-ups, you write down how you had your day, what issues came up. So you're having this very, very one-on-one work being done on you 24/7. By the way, as a good clinician, that's what we're supposed to do. We work on because that's what we're trying to get the client to do, the patient to do. So the same standards apparently don't apply to us. So I'm just a giver of interventions or tools for you, the client or the patient. So what we're doing is we're dealing with a schism, divergence of purpose and truthfulness and honesty within ourselves. That's why I don't see the helping profession as a profession per se. It's a lifestyle. You can't separate that. You can't separate that. It's not like being an electrician or a mechanic, car mechanic, not to undermine those professions, they're noble professions, but when it comes to helping professions, it's totally on a different level. You're dealing with human beings directly, day in, day out. And the closest human being is, well, right there with your jugular. You, the person, myself. Doing good is wonderful. It's necessary for our growth, for ourselves and for others, doing good. However, in this atmosphere, in the world, I notice, like everything else, doing good is also becoming like a trend. So it's taking on this superficial characteristic. And the immediate side effect, as like the buzz, as the hit, the satisfaction that comes out of it. Now the person wants to do more of that, more of that, and more of that, more of that. Oh, I've helped this many elephants in Africa. I want to do more. I want to go there. Okay, when is it going to be your time for you to work on you? Instead of running away from you. If you're running away from your own problems, your own issues, to go and help out whatever, whomever, there's a problem. If your anger, hatred is not only not dissipating, disappearing, being destroyed every day, instead it's growing every day, while you're engaged in this quote-unquote good work, you're fooling yourself. Because you're not ennobling yourself, your character. That's why I meant by earlier the stench, the stink of having delusion, having hatred and anger in our hearts, in our minds, being lustful, greedy, and delusional in a sense, trying to stay in this ignorant state. And that's where, for example, the binging part comes in, which does marvelous, I'm using it sarcastically, a marvelous job on the mind becoming more and more numb. It doesn't grow at all. No one has ever grown as a being, as a human being, by watching something, by binging, or by going in and chugging down alcohol. To forget, to make room for them to live with themselves. So let's try to stay away from treating this beautiful thing called acts of kindness, goodness, as another addiction, in order for us to run away from what's really going on. And absolutely, we can do both. Then, once we have done our work, and we are doing our work, it's not like a past participle, I have done my work. No, you're fooling yourself. I can't tell you how many therapists I've seen who've said that to me. No, I'm okay. I'm done. You sure? I mean, like, you're okay, and you can't, cross that boundary. Of course, I have to respect their professionalism, this and that, at least on the superficial level. So you have to work with these people. So you pull away. You've said what you needed to say. Where they take it, that's up to them, of course. However, that is very dangerous. No amount of distractions. By the way, the good deed, when it's an addiction like that, before it becomes an addiction, and after, it becomes a distraction. But on the outside, it's a very lovely distraction, because the society around me are going to look at me. You remember the 500 million people, when they see me, oh wow, they're going to talk about me, my action. Look at that. What a great way, not just to distract oneself from the problems that are infesting one's mind and heart, but on top of that, you get accolades. Wow, you should be, there should be, you should be, I don't know, sanctified. You should have a statue of you. There should be an altar dedicated. At least in our mind, we're thinking this. Life doesn't need to be so complicated if we know how to listen to ourselves and what's going on inside, instead of going outside of ourselves to find solutions for them. All you need is about 5 minutes sometimes, just 5 or even 2 minutes. Take a breath, sit down, pull yourself away from whatever's going on. Go to the bathroom, go into a closet, I don't care. Just breathe in and just watch what's happening in the mind. And just compassionately nod to yourself in acceptance. And with kindness, you can say the words something like, I understand and I forgive you. I forgive you. I know what you're going, I know. In fact, I also, let's try to forgive them too, whoever it is, whatever the situation is. Go get a cup of water. Put a big smile on your face, on your heart, and remove yourself from this old skin that was there with you in that closet, in that bathroom, whatever, and come out into the newness of the now. The newness of the now. And allow life to unfold on its own terms for a change, instead of having a script ready-made for it to abide by. Otherwise, you're not going to be happy. No. And that is the very first step of really doing good. That's legitimate because you're starting with yourself. Instead of going outside in order for you to do something, in order for you to end up feeling good. Especially if the person smiles and says, thank you, I appreciate that, thank you, writing you a card or something. This happens with all of us. All of us. So, this is an encouragement, an invitation, because I personally have dealt with this and deal with this in my own life, of course. So this is an issue that happens everywhere, I've seen, as a clinician, as I mentioned, as a teacher, working with other teachers. So we don't need to become jaded. There's so much good that we can do. I mean, come on, we've been on this planet for some time with plenty of experiences. There's a lot we can do. But let us do our work first for 5 minutes, and then go outside and do your work of good. Then it will be fun, whatever outcome it has. Because you're coming from already present feeling of goodness happening. It's a present continuous experience of living goodness. And you don't need to have an object at that point, you being the subject. No. You're walking down the street and all of a sudden you realize, oh wow, I'm smiling. I don't know why. I didn't see any lavender. I didn't see some beautiful rainbows in the sky. I didn't see, but I'm feeling good. That's a good sign. And I'm not buzzed. I'm not drunk. So there are no technically outside causes for me to feel good, but I'm feeling good. Okay, it's wonderful. That's what I'm talking about as the starting point for every good action. It shouldn't be compulsive. It shouldn't be They shouldn't have, it shouldn't have this sense of tension, tightness in it. Because that usually indicates there's craving there, there's an underlying presence of the stinking factors, let's call them that, stinking factors. Greed, hatred, or anger and delusion. That are self-generated, by the way. They're not outside of us, they're inside of us. No amount of good deed, whether with humans, animals, saving this or that, none of it is going to get rid of those. Your own personal work on yourself will allow you to get rid of them. No Nobel Prize and no titles like that will give you this freedom from those defilements of greed or lust, hatred or anger and delusion, living in ignorance basically. I hope that helps.